All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, influential people are known to have a profound impact in shaping nations across the world. Influential global figures such as Mahatma Gandhi in India, Martin Luther King Jr. in the US, Nelson Mandela in South Africa, Margaret Thatcher of the UK, Malala Yousafzai, a Pakistan activist, amongst all others, right, contributed to nation building in different ways. Here in Nigeria, the visionary leadership of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe during the independence movement to the resilience of Fela Anikulapo Kuti in challenging societal norms through music. Nigeria's influential figures have also, shaped its cultural, political, and social landscape. All right, so join us to have this conversation is an advocate for a new Nigeria, a human rights activist, a content creator, Peter Aka. Is it Akas or Aka?
Aka.
Aka.
Very correct.
Also known as Randy Peters, that always make sure that people must give their life to Christ. Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to have you on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure.
I want to say, by the way, I love you. Like, every time I'm on TikTok and I stay, I make sure that I listen to your skits, because I mean, you just give me so much joy. I don't know, I just love the skits, because it's just like there's a way you must connect it with your koboko that you have to give your life to Christ. So I mean, hearing you speak about what's it called, the things that happens in our nation and the things that are happening within the political landscape, I say, yes, this is it. So you have to have some level of, so I get it that we're influential, we're gathering a lot of momentum when it comes to content, when it comes to creativity, when it comes to entertainment. But at the same time, right, for us to have any meaningful growth or impact in our country, Nigeria, we still have to have a blend where we are just not talking about all the things that we love to do, but we're also talking about the things that matter. So thank you so much again for joining us. First of all, I love your shirt, Justice for Nigeria.
Thank you.
We must find justice for
Nigeria.
So tell me, I mean, when you look at our nation today as it is, right, what do you think? Where do you think we are as a people? Is it as bad as it's painted, or maybe it's in our head?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here once again. Nigeria is not just as bad as it is, or as it is represented. The truth of the matter is, without sounding as, a prophet of doom, whatever you think is the extent to which Nigeria is bad, it is actually worse. And the greatest tragedy about our country is knowing the fact that there is no rock bottom. There is no worst case scenario in Nigeria. The fact that things are this bad does not mean it cannot get worse. I mean, there was a time where we thought that maybe the former president, Jonathan, was so bad. We had to occupy Nigeria. People needed the president to leave. 8 years after change, our next level. People thought Buhari was so. In fact, part of the North, after shouting, say Baba for some time, started saying Bama so, meaning we do not want again. Now we are into another. So for even persons to begin to say that maybe Buhari was better, maybe Jonathan was better. So you ask yourself the question, are we making progress? Are we retrogressing? Are things actually getting better or even worse? So it is up to all of us to answer with the indices that we have on national development.
That's deep.
Very deep.
All right, so I think that, let's even delve into the issues of having influential people, in Nigeria, or influential people literally shaping, the landscape. We've seen the likes of, Nelson Mandela. You've seen a lot of them, even prior colonial era. We've seen those who actually are forefathers. The reason why we have independence and all of that.
Heroes past.
Heroes past, if you like to say. Do you think we still have heroes present in Nigeria?
First of all, what does it mean to be a person of influence? To be a person of influence, it means you have done certain things in certain quarters and you have succeeded. And you have gained the kind of prominence that your words or your actions begin to shape certain things and they carry some weight around. So the question about Nigeria and our sort of influence is asking ourselves the question that what exactly is our, passion about life? For you to be influential, you must be passionate about something. If you became influential, it's because you had an environment to thrive. You had opportunities that were given to you. Now, would you sit down and say because you have had those opportunities, you have used them to climb the ladder, And now when you get to a point, you shut the door such that no one can go through that door again. The process should be that people should have a seemingly fair, easier shot because you had that opportunity. The persons you mentioned, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther, these are people who saw a bigger assignment than themselves. They discovered that they were a small part of a very great thing. And the risk of being influential and not helping build society is knowing that even what you think is your area of influence can fizzle out before your eyes. Nothing is permanent. You might be a media mogul, you might be an influential actor, you might be an influential, whatever it is. And tomorrow you have a government that comes and is not tolerant to any of those things and upturns everything. Yeah. And also the influence that you so, adore is gone.
No, so I think that, we're literally taking it from the angle of what the people are before they become the influence. Yeah. If you look at the story of Nelson Mandela, if you follow through Nelson Mandela, Nelson Mandela did not become Nelson Mandela because he was Nelson Mandela. He became Nelson Mandela because of what he did.
He did, yeah.
So the question now is, do we have people who are literally, who are like Nelson Mandela? Can we point to Nigerians at this point in time? Can we look at anyone in any sphere and say, hey, this person is towing the lane of Nelson Mandela?
Well, is that even possible? You know why I say that? Is that possible? Because where we are right now, I see that a lot of people have activated survival mode.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you know all this when they talk, say you have to have a cause that is higher than yourself. The person's the hunger cannot even allow the person
to have that.
Do you understand? So Nelson Mandela, right, had a level of, what's it called? Would I call it patriotism or call to just do something other than himself? That's why he could go through all that stress, eating different cockroaches and insects in the prison. Who are the people today? Do you understand? That would say, you know what? Let me forget that I am hungry. And there is a problem. There's a crisis in Nigeria. And you know what? Then build and see how we can then probably bring Nigeria out of that crisis.
To answer her question even directly, yes, there are people in Nigeria who are, passionate enough or patriotic enough to want to support and build their country. Just like Nelson Mandela. It was what he did that made him influential. But the issue about Nigeria is the patriotism will have to begin with the leadership. And your right to even, register your patriotism is tied to the extent to which the leadership of that country gives you the opportunity to thrive. How many persons are really ready to say, I want to stick my neck like Nelson Mandela? I can go through everything that he has been through. Nigerians at a point do not even see a need to be patriotic because they ask themselves, what exactly is in it for me?
And if I die?
If I die, I just die.
It would have been worthless.
I mean, we're talking about persons who died at the October 20, 2020 toll gate issue. The government has not even come out to say if we even acknowledge that so number are dead. These are issues that you mentioned. Fela Anikulapo Kuti, who started, most of what Fela sang 30 years ago are still in Nigeria today as we speak. These are people, so there are Nigerians. What we just need to do is to connect the fact that we cannot just become so hopeless or helpless or despondent, but we must continue to see how those little trickles of passion that we have, those persons who are heroes present, as she called them, ignite the fire for us to get it done even today. If it were possible before, we can still do it today.
So I wanted to actually come in to say that to expect patriotism to start from the leadership is like trying to be unrealistic about nation building, right? People like Nelson Mandela, the Mahatma Gandhi, we call their names now, and they became leaders, like she said, they became leaders because of the resistance. At the point when they started resistance, they were just like normal people. They were like fowls who came out during the toll gates and who made music, who encouraged Nigerians. Nigerians have the capacity to build a nation, but you're not going to, I don't think that it's ideal to request that to start from the leadership. The problem is the leadership. They are the people that we need to resist, right? So to expect that your oppressor will also be your savior, unrealistic. So we have to start from recognizing that there are Nigerians who are already resisting. Perhaps we can band together, and we have issues now that people back in the day didn't have. I casually told a friend of mine who is in the military, how easy will it be to, try and resist people today the way that people did back in the day? And he said that before, communication travels very slow because the channels weren't quite as open as today. Today, if you plan the coup today, before you get home, they would have been waiting for you at your door. So some of the problems that we have currently are not the problems that people had back in the day when they were building resistance. So it's like we have to recognize what is important to us today, the people that we want to build with today, and build with them, and not require the states to do it. I don't know if that's something you agree with.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So there are two things. We're talking about patriotism in terms of nation building, which has to begin with, the example will be set by the leaders. But now acknowledging that the leadership has failed,
yes,
and the people will have to begin a movement or a process of fixing it and holding government accountable, absolutely has to begin with the people. And that is why, as Nigerians, we must become uncomfortable with our current situation. Because whatever situation that you are ready to manage, you are not likely to change. If you continue to express hope, oh, now just 4 years, after 8 years, it will come out. Where it is as we are as a nation today, we are almost at the brinks, at the tipping point. Nigerians must realize that the political system as it is today is literally the weapon formed against Nigerians. And the earlier that all Nigerians come together and say, look, set aside religious, ethnic differences, and let us be that small part of a great thing that does little things together, becomes a great thing to save this country in the best interest of all of us. That works in that way. It has to begin from the people realizing that.
So I'm happy you said that, and I want to come back to what Buffer said, but I think it glossed over the conversation. The challenges that we had when we were younger is not the challenges of today. Like she rightly said, if I just decide to say we're doing a small coup, before I finish this show, they go down, they wait for me. DSS go down, wait for me. But also I say, oh yeah, come on, answer a question. And that in itself is a blessing. It means that, you know, so if we piggy it back to the question, right? So let's focus now. So we're not looking for regular people trying to build that will become influential after what they have done. We already have influential people. I mean, just go on social media, go on TikTok, go on Instagram. Huge following. We have people with numbers, like massive numbers, right? So how do we use what we have today? Because again, don't forget the things that happened with X, the platform. How the government tried to shut it down and all of that, because a lot was going on. I mean, the success of Occupy the toll gate, the Lekki toll gate, only happened because we had a platform like X. Right? So how do we now translate that influence? What would it take, you know, to translate those kinds of influence into things that will truly transform our nation?
It will begin by having conversations like what you are doing today. Nigerians need a champion. Even on my way here, throughout the conversation in the vehicle, you know, at bus stops everywhere, everyone knows that there is a fundamental problem and it needs to be tackled. But how do we go about it is what is the question on the minds of every person. Anybody who has a following, who has a platform, must come to the understanding that you have a platform for a time where you can also use it to speak up. You are not just having a platform for the sake of it. Because the risk is that if you fail to fix the system, in no distant time, you may also become a victim. Being influential or having a follower, a strong followership, does not insulate you from the problem. You might be able to travel overseas, you might be able to do this, but can you dodge a stray bullet if it hits you, like the lawyer who was killed in Ajah some time ago? So Nigerians must first of all come to the realization that we are in a dilemma. We are our only solution. Now, how do we come together and have this conversation, put a spotlight on it, and begin to extend that hand of fellowship and say, look, what are our issues? How do we begin to solve them? Gradually, just as you admitted, the issue of NSAS began on X as a conversation. As it continues to build, it trickles down. Somebody begins to talk about it. Before you know that, it gathers steam and becomes what it became the last time. That is what will have to happen in Nigeria. Everybody will have to redirect their focus to where focus is needed. Take out your distractions and know that it is our lives. We are all victims. We no one talk, we no one talk, we no one die, we no one die. People are dying in Benue, Plateau, Zamfara. So do we fix it or do we continue to just talk?
You know what? So let's take a very short break, right? When we come back from that break, we'll continue this conversation. I think it's getting a lot more interesting. Stay with us. Hi, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having a discussion and we're asking about what we can do as influential people to shape nation, right? And we have with us Peter Aka. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Our phone line is also now open. The number to call is 070-2500-7749. Messi, you wanted to come in?
Yes, please. So I wanted to ask you about, we've talked about the methods, how and all of this happened. Because we already had, literally mentioned role models or like people whom we think did great stuff, and literally not we think, it's in history book, the likes of Mandela, Martin Luther King, Margaret Thatcher. The list is almost endless. It was a non-violent resistant approach method, and protest was also part of it. They had, they employed methods such as, boycotting, civil disobedience, amongst all the tools. So I did like you to look at it. Let's talk about, one of the very common tools that we have seen, which is protest. We've seen that every other time that the people engage in a protest, which is usually peaceful, it gets, hijacked by, various elements. What are your thoughts? What do you think that, at this point in time, which is a very popular, method that has been used even across, different quarters. What do you make of this particular method that seemed to have been, deployed, especially during the, we see that the biggest was, the hashtag EndSARS protest that happened. And we saw that that was actually hijacked. They gave it different interpretations and what have you. So how do we, engage moving forward?
Okay. The straight answer to it is that if you look at the antecedents from the movements of Martin Luther King to that of Nelson Mandela, no matter the unconventional means that you decide to begin, a peaceful movement or whatever you would call it, it has to be if you deploy their own powers, to scuttle that ambition of what the people want to do. But that is where our resilience will have to come in. No matter how much we talk on social media, no matter how much we tweet, if we do not put a physical strength behind it, it will not work. Whatever the National Assembly, senators, lawmakers decide to do it would be what you permit them to continue doing. If we will make it clear that it has to be a peaceful coming together, we have a right to peaceful assembly, even if most times it's just on paper and not so implemented. But that is our only tool to make sure that we demonstrate to these persons that we are a peaceful people. What we are only doing is demanding what is rightfully ours, holding government accountable so that government can work for everybody and not just a handful of persons living in extreme wealth and luxury against a majority living in poverty or extreme whatever it is called. So that is the simple answer. No matter what we do, we will have to deploy boots on the ground or legs on the streets, calling the attentions of the authorities to say, look, we are dying.
Right.
We need help.
Please go in.
So two things that we've said here.
Yeah.
When we say that a movement for a resistance is peaceful, that it is non-violent, we're implying that there was no bloodshed. Do you agree, as a student of history that you are, that any kind of resistance, has been successful without bloodshed? That's number one. Do you also think that when we say that resistance has been non-violent, we're glossing over the people who lost their lives to ensure that that thing came to be? That's number one. Two, you mentioned that we have to take a stand to say, a few people cannot be the ones gaining everything from our economy. The masses have to gain something too. Do you think a strong man that knows that he's in power, that is in charge of you, is going to willfully release his power to you? Are we surprised when we see that the government influences protests to say that they're violent, that they killed people? They put crimes on top of people who died at the toll gates. Is that not something that you expect?
Thank you. In fact, beautiful question, and there are about three. You mentioned about three issues, so tied in one. So let me see how we can unpack. First of all, without glossing over the fact that people died and all of that during protests or movements like that, rest in peace to the persons who lost their lives. Do I understand that there can be no movement without bloodshed? My dear sister, what is your other option? To sit back, do nothing? Blood is being shed without protest. As we are talking, people are being killed. Benue State, people cannot even go to farms. Agatu, Guma, go to Plateau, Rio, Mango, Zamfara, Katsina. Bandits are running sub-governmental levels under a government. You heard of the lawyer or the judge who was kidnapped with her family?
Yes.
You have had, and her first son killed. Gory stories. You saw the Owo massacres in Francis Xavier Catholic Church a few years ago.
Yes.
Women tied CWO wrappers, Christian mothers had their stomachs slit, their throats, died, killed on top of children. So people are dying. The question is, are we ready to take the courage to demand that we do whatever it takes as a peaceful, democratic people? Whether, from your last question, whether the government has appetite to willfully give, nobody will willfully surrender what is beneficial to them. You have to prove the point to them that, look, your time is up. Whatever it is that has been, you know, the fiasco around all of this mismanagement and recklessness in leadership, the power of the people must always be greater than the people in power. And when we come together, there is nothing we cannot achieve.
Okay, so Peter, let's bring it home.
Okay.
Nyesom Wike said something last week, and I thought that was a very powerful statement that should not be glossed over.
Yes.
Because the same thing happened in Lagos.
Yes.
Where people were warning a certain tribe that do not come out, do not vote. And
Yes.
Nyesom Wike said, don't think that what happened in 2023 would ever repeat itself.
Yeah.
That's the height of confidence that you are not even,
Yeah.
So for me, when I heard that statement, chills came down my spine.
Yes.
That how can a minister openly admit that you circumvented the will of the people?
Yeah.
That was one. Edo State now, there's an election coming up.
Yes.
And the thing that flood could scatter
Was
the thing that is supposed to help us ensure that we have a transparent election.
Yeah.
Please help me make it make sense.
I don't know how to address you, whether auntie or Mrs.
No, call me Uwa.
Uwa. The statements or the remarks of the minister, to say the least, were unfortunate. But it is a pattern. It is not new. In fact, those remarks also extended to a sort of, subtle, not subtle, direct, threat. And it even took a swipe at the minister, the sitting senator for Abuja, the woman.
Yes, that's to Senator
Kingigbe.
That was the person he was addressing.
And needless to remind you that the FCT minister does not vote in Abuja. His polling unit is in Rivers, in Port Harcourt. But he's telling you that Abuja is my territory.
Yep.
That is the power and the arrogance that Nigerian politicians have arrogated to themselves. And partly because even we, the people, have enabled them. This person has been minister for state before, has been chief of staff, has been governor. He wanted to be president, did not get the ticket, wanted to be vice president. Today he's minister for FCT. Even there is a video where the president of the country told his party people that I will give you Edo State.
Yep.
Yes.
I will give you
Edo State. I was coming to that because it is after the president made that statement that the Beavers machine
had about 4,000 of them. And the mere fact that this current INEC chairman who conducted the 2023 election is still your sitting INEC chairman till date does not give anybody cause for concern. Yeah. So as you have said, if you tread all of this, you will see that we are all leading to one thing. Nigerians will either choose, if we want to remain a captured people, where people who occupy public offices, who are supposed to be the servants of the people, will gleefully boast to you that they can do anything and nothing will happen because there is no deterrence or there is nothing like accountability or consequences. If we want to be captured people and allow them to continue, it is up to us. But I believe that as a people, it is once a majority of the people come together and say enough, it will be enough.
So apart from, having influential people influencing, and, people cannot influence if there's no following.
Yeah.
So literally we're talking about, because influencing is in two dimensions.
Yes.
Those who are literally doing, taking out actions, effecting change in their social, political space are influencers, even though they might not have the numbers and the followings, as it were. And so you also have on the other strata those who are literally who have the numbers and the followings.
They can control what
they can control the narrative, you know, in different sphere. What sort of engagement do you think that, you know, they should be having, right? You know, because we've seen how it is. I mean, even recently, as you speak right now, there's a protest that's gone on, you know, in some part of Nigeria, and we've seen that people have been arrested because they are protesting. These are protesters who are not armed. They are peaceful protesters.
Yes, carrying placards.
All carrying placards. Some of them are dressed in, you know, they are dressed in the Nigerian colors, having the flag wrapped around their bodies, you know, and what are they asking for? They are complaining about the cost of living, you know, the hunger and poverty in the land. So now that, you know, we know that protest has always been a tool, you have said, whatever it is, you have to just choose, you know, the option, right? That's on the one side. What other means, what other method do you think that, you know, influencers should engage, and what should, you know, the followers or those who are following should be doing to support these influencers?
Develop a higher level of moral consciousness. As an influencer or in any space you find yourself, do not let the hardship or the pain of fellow human beings go by as nothing. We must first of all try to see life through the lenses of other persons. The privileges that you have does not mean that every person has those kind of privileges. So once you come to that understanding, you will try to put focus or redirect our attention that, look, everybody is not having it, you know, easy. What do I do? The little update you put on your status, when you see 40 persons killed in Plateau, 40 persons killed in Benue, putting it on your status, commenting. You are not only on social media, you know, to comment on trending stories about people, you know, engage in gossip and irrelevant issues that do not advance the cause of humanity in any way. They are good for entertainment, for whatever you want to do. But you should know that when we address the salient points, our lives are safer and better. So if we put that kind of focus, imagine waking up tomorrow and seeing 50 tweets or 2,000 tweets talking about the cost of living. As we are talking right now, queues have returned to filling stations. Somehow in Nigeria, fuel scarcity has become a norm. In past administrations, it was almost just at the end of the year. It was seasonal. Christmas. It was seasonal. Now, with the removal of subsidy and all of the kind of brouhaha in the petroleum sector, it is a norm. So imagine waking up tomorrow and you see even actors, musicians, anybody with a platform talking about, Mr. President, what is going on? You are the Minister for Petroleum. It begins to have a subtle effect. The government knows, no matter what they throw as the stone of distraction, you look away. Very soon now, Big Brother will come. Nigerians will move.
Who do you think are the sponsors of Big Brother?
But you know, and I'm a bit worried, just as we delve into the text and all of that. I'm just worried. I don't think that we have, because when we begin to compare ourselves and begin to look at the likes of Nelson Mandela and have them in conversations like this, I mean, it's so much. We can't even stand, we can't even, you know, be close to the feet or close to the garment of the likes of Nelson Mandela, because these men were literally selfless. They had nothing at all to benefit from all of this. There was no interest whatsoever. It was not because, you know, do you think we have these selfless people? Do you think that these influencers that were demanding all of this, even thinking about the people, do they even have the interest?
So this is why this conversation is needed.
Do
you understand? This is why this conversation is needed, because I agree with you. Now, look at movies. Do you understand? You will speak to producers, they will tell you Nigerians really like feel-good things. As far as I'm concerned, that's why I cannot go to any cinema to watch a Nigerian film. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's a waste of my time.
Same thing with
the reason a lot of these nations that we so admire, why things change for them. Look at Sarafina. They created movies. They did
told the story of their people.
They told their history. Where are they?
Manhattan.
Do you understand? There are just too many of these movies that they have created. But look at us. We want to create film. We just go to the cinema and they just act. In fact, I don't even want to, because they not come for me. But you guys can come for me. It's okay. Because we have to tell ourselves.
You have to tell ourselves.
Look at what you just said now. Imagine if every Nigerian just decides to go on X and we're talking about the hardship or the situation of the crisis in Nigeria.
It doesn't matter.
It will change the game.
He must listen.
Because at that point, you have gotten his attention.
Yes.
So how do we start to wake people up?
We are already, the awakening has begun. The awakening, that is the good thing. No matter how bad Nigeria's situation is, it is not hopeless. A lot of Nigerians love this country. I mean, it is difficult. It is even strange for you to still find people who love Nigeria. A lot of persons will ask you, why should I be patriotic? What has the country given to me? Opportunities that were available for our fathers are not available today. The Gen Z, millennials. So as it is now, this conversation has begun. It is my hope that persons, you see me on social media every day, no matter what I do, everything I do is tied towards one thing, ensuring that humanity is better beginning from my country. Nigeria has to be better than how I met it. And in this Nigeria, we don't die here, we live here. Nigeria will be great because Nigeria has you and I. So the conversation as it continues, gradually, you will not force people. The hand of incompetence of leadership is long enough to go round. And poverty and hunger is a denominating factor. Yes, so it levels everybody. Yeah. Today now, everybody is talking about fuel. Whether you were part of a Yoruba, Ronu, a Milokon, obedient, articulated, you are not buying fuel different. You are not buying bread differently.
And the flood is hitting you.
The flood is hitting you. If you like, stay even in VGC, the highbrow areas. Flood is hitting anybody who, lives where there is no proper drainage. So that is the common denominator. Everybody will come around. And by the time we come around, we'll begin to ask ourselves, what should we begin with? Which is electoral reform. And that is where I have been putting my focus to ensure that in 2027, Nigerians have the opportunity to vote in their leaders.
My fear. Wait, sorry, my darling. My fear. With what the minister, I'll go back to Insan Wike. With what he said, do you think we can ever have a free and fair election in Nigeria ever again?
And then, just to add to what she has said, it's not about the reforms. Yeah. I don't want to say the word, we're national television. Yeah. But the truth is, I was devastated because I was part of the people who literally were monitoring this election. I can tell you how sad I felt. Not sad about the outcome, but sad about the process. Yeah. Because, of course, if I'm sad about the outcome, that means the process that led to the outcome was truncated. Yeah. The question is, there was an electoral reform. Yeah. The introduction of the BVAS was the best thing that would have happened. Yeah. We remember the time when a lot of people were lauding President Muhammadu Buhari for signing the Electoral Act. And I remember a governorship candidate or aspirant in one of these states who was literally saying, I am not a fan of Muhammadu Buhari, but for the fact that he had given access to that electoral act,
like when they signed,
I realized that would happen. But even with the introduction of the BVAS, we still had all of these issues. So I don't think that it's about the reform. It's about the people.
No, my dear, my very beloved sisters. In fact, look, thank you for this conversation. It is not about the BVAS. Nigerians,
it is not about the electoral reforms.
It is about the electoral reform. But look, we will have to pay attention to detail. The 2022 electoral bill that was signed by President Buhari was a setup for what happened in 2023. What we need to do is to pay attention to strengthening that bill, that law. Once you sign a law and you say that we want to do electronic transmission, but you leave it to the electoral umpire to decide how he wants to conduct it. And immediately the result is, Nigeria spent 313 billion on last year's election. And immediately the results came out. The President Buhari said that anybody who is not okay, go to court. President Buhari, all the time he contested for presidency 3 times before he won the 4th time. Anytime he lost, he went to court. And the court upheld the result of the person in power. So what we need to do is to ensure that we insist on strengthening that law. That is our only option, no? Because if you decide not to go through the electoral reform, what other pattern do you want to use to pick your leaders in a democracy? We are not a monarchy.
So I totally understand.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time. Just one comment. So Derry Piscasso says, if we're sincere about the national development indices, we are in a retrogressive state. Okay. Side note, the lady in red is beautiful and she has a lovely voice. Okay. Maybe that's your fan. I'd love to hear this good man speak again. He speaks from a place of immense knowledge and clarity. And Talent Speaks says, amazing conversation. I mean, we love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I said it that I knew we were going to have a great conversation. And please be a friend of the house. Because for me, I think the only way, and this, with what you've said, you acted what you know how you put your you put your money where your mouth is. Because some people, they are activists on social media. When you invite them for conversation, they will ask you what platform. You didn't do all of that. It means that for you, it is the issues that we need to push forward. And as we keep on pushing those conversations, spreading the videos all over the place, let people just hear. And maybe some level of change will happen. So the lady with the beautiful voice, do you want to say something quickly? Somebody's admiring you.
I want to just quickly say that when we give the impression that any kind of resistance will happen without bloodshed, we're deceiving the people that we need to partake in the process, right? So we need to start saying that this is what it will cost you, right? We need to have that conversation. That's number one. Two, for influential people that we're holding to a certain standard, it's an issue of, it's a matter of demand, you know. If people want feel-good movies, these are businessmen. They will do feel-good movies. So we as the populace, we need to say that when this content comes out, we will consume it. Even if the larger populace will not consume the kind of content that will teach history and get people to, you know, rise up, we will consume it. So we need to do that. I think we need to owe them that.
Let's leave it for our guests. Final comments.
Nigeria, as bad as it is not a hopeless situation. It would be difficult but not impossible. Great nations are nations that were built by resilient people who, in spite of all the challenges, were determined to make a difference. Nigeria will be great because Nigeria has you and I. We are our last hope. Let us come together and salvage this country for the best interest of all of us. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think we had a fantastic conversation. Let's see you continue. Thank you. Before we go, ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us across all our social media handles. And if you missed our quote for today, here it is again. True leadership lies in guiding others to success, in ensuring that everyone is performing at their best, doing the work they are pledged to do, and doing it well. We'll see you guys tomorrow live at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen.